Hello again, everybody. Here are some photos from a mid-June 2026 trip on the Columbia and Snake Rivers aboard the American Cruise Line's vessel Harmony. It was my first river cruise, and I'll tell you, it's a lot more about the scenery and the sights than the boating itself. It's so easy, pleasant, and relaxing. Forget about seasickness. You don't even know the boat is moving unless you look outside at the shoreline. The trip began with a jet boat ride on Hell's Canyon, which is on the border between Oregon and Washington. At nearly 8,000 feet, it is the deepest river gorge in North America. Wildlife abound, but in my pictures, unfortunately, mountain goats and bighorn sheep look like tiny cats. And you pretty much have to imagine the petroglyph drawings. But the scenery, absolutely stunning and totally non-Florida. The Reach Museum in Richland, Washington, tells the story of the Hanford nuclear site. This is a fuel assembly display outdoors. Hanford was part of the top-secret Manhattan Project. Plutonium made at Hanford was the fuel for the bomb dropped on Nagasaki, Japan, which put an end to World War II. The sail part of the nuclear submarine USS Triton is also at the museum. The Triton's claim to fame is that in 1960, it became the first sub to sail around the world totally underwater. This cruise provided an opportunity for my first ride on an e-bike on a beautiful trail that used to be a two-lane highway. Electric assist on these steep hills is helpful, but to me, I'm sorry, e-bikes kind of defeat the purpose of bicycling in the first place, which is to get off your butt and moving. Now, I'll bet there are at least 10 million pictures of Mount Hood. Well, here's another one for your collection. A train excursion went to this spot. The rail cars themselves seemed pretty authentic, probably from the 1940s or so. But the rail bed must have been in pretty bad shape because the train moved at a snail's pace. The concessions were very pricey. Look here, $4 for a bottle of water that moments ago was totally free on the boat. And the destination was a winery, where the tourists had about an hour to pay for wine by the glass that they could have gotten for free on the boat. Or they could go looking at future garage sale items at an overpriced gift shop with some interesting little displays. Personal resolution? No more. No more cruise ship-based train rides for this old guy. The trip covered some 465 miles from Clarkston, Washington to Portland, Oregon. The boat went through 8 locks, and they were all deep ones, not like many of the ones you find on the upper Mississippi River, where the lift can be just a few feet. It's worth reading up on locks if you haven't. You know, they don't use a shred of electricity, no pumps, just the natural forces of water pressure and gravity. One problem the lock engineers had to deal with was to figure out a way to help the salmon get upstream to lay their eggs. Strong as they are, the salmon were certainly not going to be able to jump up a 50-foot lock. Solution? Salmon ladders line the lock wall. Apparently the fish think they're just fine. The first of these locks was built in 1933. The last one was finished in 1965. Going through them, I had to wonder, could we do projects like these today? Oh, sure, we have the engineering and construction skills. But think about all the roadblocks there are nowadays to almost any development. I mean, you've got permits and regulations, legislation, lawsuits, goes on and on. It's endless. And if all those hurdles are cleared, think how much more expensive the project is. Well, anyway, how it is. As for the Harmony herself, she's about 7 years old, almost as long as a football field, and about 60 feet wide. She needs about 8 feet of water under her keel. The standard cabins are very nice, nothing terribly fancy, and they all have a little balcony. I'll tell you, the single cabins are a nice touch for solo travelers who don't want to have to pay double. The dining room is attractive, the food good to excellent, but I'm afraid I do have to put an asterisk next to the prime rib I got. It was grossly overdone and tough as shoe leather. There was one dinner seating for the entire boat, and while the service is pretty fast, the room gets quite noisy when it's full. The outdoor lounge includes a grill for some great breakfast sandwiches, burgers, and things like that. A large room at the bow of the ship is a multi-purpose gathering place. There is a guest lecturer many days. Some of the best entertainment on this particular cruise was a quartet of saxophone players joined by a pianist and a bass guitarist. And there was also a fellow who played both trumpet and piano simultaneously. There were about 175 guests or so on board and 60 crew members. All the crew were young Americans. The guy in charge of the excursions started working for the cruise line right out of high school, which was 3 years ago for him. Quite a few of the passengers wondered whose grandchild he might be. The captain invited guests into the wheelhouse a couple of times. All the crew, except maybe the captain, multitasked. The cruise director played bartender at cocktail hour. Whatever job needed doing, everybody did it. I imagine I wasn't the only old boomer generation guest who saw in this young crew maybe some hope for our country. These young people worked hard. They showed initiative. They acted highly professionally and responsibly. They had a 100% can-do attitude. And I'll tell you, I never saw even one scrolling furiously through a cell phone. I look forward to my next American Cruise Lines trip in 2028. And for now, that's how things look from the litter box.